The greed of 2K games really does know no bounds.
Ah yes, basketball. You know, it's very trendy to be hating on 2K right now because of the release of NBA 2K18 and all the additional DLC that they've thrown into that game, and everyone seems really pissed off about why that's happening and how the industry is just a slippery slope into this terrible area that no one wants to go to. In this episode of Smash JT, I'm going to be tackling the issue of DLC and talking about why us as the gamers are the true problem in all of this. Oftentimes people will point their fingers at these large AAA corporations and say, there's the problem right there. They're creating this content incomplete and then putting all this additional stuff as DLC so that not only are people purchasing a $60 game, but then on top of that, they're buying additional content to make it sometimes double or triple the price of the original game. And while all of these companies could take a look in the mirror and say, how could we treat the consumer better? They're in business to make money. And they're doing that by taking advantage of people that don't understand the basic concepts of if you buy a game, you should get the full game with it. And when you don't get that, don't fall into this pit of purchasing more items just to get the full game from them. And people will say, how do you even combat that? Don't buy the game in the first place. If the research is made prior to purchasing the game, then you won't succumb to the circle of buying the game, buying more DLC, bitching about how the company is forcing you to buy this DLC to get the complete game, and then buying the sequel to it, and then having them do it all over again to you. I could talk in further detail about all of these games and the specifics that they do to squeeze money out of the players, like how NBA 2K18 looks like a freemium mobile game, and how they have these coins that you have to purchase to improve your character in career mode, instead of just being able to play the game like a normal person under a normal amount of time. They make it insanely ridiculous to progress, almost forcing the player into a corner where they open up their wallet and buy more play coins so that they can get more enjoyment out of the game. But I'm not going to go into too much detail because this would be a 6-hour long video if I talked about how every single company squeezed every penny out of each player who purchased the game. The typical price tag for a full-fledged console or PC video game is around $60. And according to the Wall Street Journal, video game makers are bringing in billions of dollars a year in these post-purchase add-ons, with at least one major distributor raking in more than $1 billion annually, all on its own. Just last year alone, the Wall Street Journal said that EA made $1.2 billion in revenue from selling add-ons. The industry as a whole made $4.78 billion, and this year that number is projected to come in at $5.21 billion or more. Many of these video game companies are publicly traded companies, and they have these meetings where you can actually listen in on how they talk about the customers and treat you like a piece of crap. For years, the biggest publishers in the industry have been trying to push the idea of games as a service, something with a long shelf life. Their goal is to keep the player engaged for as long as possible on a specific title to squeeze as much money as possible out of said individual. But there's a downside to this. The Wall Street Journal also says that if your players are still playing your old game, not only will they not play competitors' titles, they won't play your new game either. And that hits particularly hard in franchises that have annual releases, like Call of Duty.
Because it was his duty!
Call of Duty's latest installment, Infinite Warfare, didn't sell as well as the previous installations in the series. And while it may have been because the fans just weren't into that title, Activision Blizzard told the Wall Street Journal that a huge number of their players were still deeply engaged with the previous year's game, Black Ops 3. So with that in mind, you have to have some serious concerns going forward with every kind of franchise that has annual releases or every other year release. They're gonna try to shove that old game under the rug when a new game comes out and make you buy everything all over again. Gamers are the issue. And why are they the issue? Because they keep falling for this every single time a new game comes out. You know you're guilty of it. I know I'm guilty of it. Some people who are really engrossed in these AAA titles are the major issue, especially for those people that don't understand how the business works. And I'm not even going to try to touch much on the loot crate gambling in this issue. People that don't know any better will pour ungodly amounts of money into hoping to get a loot crate drop that maybe comes 1 out of 100, 1 out of 250 times.
Changing 500!
And in a way, it kind of reminds me how I used to fall for this when I collected baseball cards, trying to get those elusive cards that had the game-worn jerseys on them, thinking that there was some sort of value to it back then, which there's still a little bit of value in it, but God, how much money I poured into that without getting anything in return. That's exactly what's happening right now with gamers buying loot boxes.
Here's an idea. Why don't you give me half the money you were gonna bet? Then we'll go out back, I'll kick you in the nuts, and we'll call it a day.
Right now, these game publishers are seeing how far they can push the envelope, how far away that line is that they can't cross, where the gamers will just stop putting money into these games. And so far, clearly, they have not reached that line, because they are making money hand over fist with billions and billions of dollars each year, and that number is increasing, not decreasing, with how much money they make as each year goes by. And while a lot of people are pissed off at NBA 2K18 right now and their publisher 2K Games, their parent company is Take-Two Interactive, the same parent company of Rockstar Games, with Strauss Zelnick at the helm, trying to make as much money as possible from these gamers that don't understand the concept that they're just trying to squeeze money out of you. They don't care if you're even enjoying the game. I'm not buying any games made by Take-Two, Blizzard, Warner Brothers, anyone like that, because all they do is gouge you for DLC without giving you a full game. It's like they forgot that you paid $60 for the title. You take it home, unwrap the shrink wrap, put it in your system, and you have to buy more to play it more. And they are crying all the way to the bank. They say we need more money because these games these days cost so much more money to make. I call BS on that, because I've played a ton of games that were AAA titles like Nintendo's games, which still have some DLC, but it's valuable DLC that actually provides a worthwhile adventure for you after you've completed the full game. And it's not like you can't play games anymore if you stop buying these AAA titles. Like my review I did recently for SteamWorld Dig 2, an incredible game, 20 bucks, available on a ton of different systems. Nobody's talking about that game. It's a third of the price of Destiny 2, with no DLC, with no additional cost. The full game is there, and it's so much fun. There are a ton of games out there. Thimbleweed Park, a really cool follow-up point-and-click adventure from Maniac Mansion's creator. And it doesn't even have to be a new game. Rogue Legacy is one of my favorite roguelike games ever created. And it's also not just indie games. The Last of Us was an incredible game, and yes, there's DLC, but that's a whole new storyline. Or Super Mario 3D World. There are an insane amount of games, too many games out there, and I'm sure you have not played every single game that's incredible, that's already out, that doesn't try to nickel and dime you for DLC that you do not need. And if you're saying, well Jeff, I actually enjoyed Destiny 2 and I feel like I'm getting my value out of that game. Great! Then why are you complaining about the DLC? If you feel like it's worth it to you, great! And if you don't feel like it's worth it to you, don't buy it! I don't understand this argument why people are getting so pissed off at these AAA game companies that are making this ridiculous DLC and then saying they're taking all your money. Do I think it's right? No. But can I understand their perspective? Absolutely. If you're a company in business, your main objective is to make money. And if people don't see a value in your product, they're gonna stop buying your product. So clearly, if they're making billions of dollars each year, some people are getting some value out of this DLC, and I don't understand where the argument is from people who are buying the game and saying they're not getting a value out of it. Do your research. Look at the reviews. Find out what your friends are saying about the games. Don't just buy it blindly and then bitch and moan that it's not what you thought it was gonna be. And until people take a stand and stop buying the content, it's gonna be there and it's gonna keep getting worse, because that's what happens in the industry. They want to make more and more money each year that goes by. And I see this culminating into a really big issue if it keeps going down this road. But thankfully, in this golden age of gaming, there are thousands of choices for games to play out there. And you don't have to buy these games if you don't want to deal with this DLC issue. But that's just my take. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about this, because I'm sure there are a lot of conflicting opinions on it. Let me know down in the comment section below, and as always, thank you guys so much for watching. Have a good one.
Can you make it all about one thing when there's so much you used to be about?